What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch, and I have a dirty little secret to share with you. I have secretly become a Junkrat main. I know many of you are going to say I should be ashamed of myself, but I'm not. Of course, I play a ton of other heroes as well. But over the course of the past season, playing on all my different accounts, Junkrat has quickly proven to be the most reliable DPS option for me, and I think incredibly underrepresented in his power for the current meta, but even scarier in the next meta. I've talked to you a lot about how Brigida armor and tankiness is going to be strong. Junkrat's already good right now playing counter meta, and I just see his value going up as flankers and dive in general goes down with other counters countering them as well. So today's video, we're going to break down some clips and tactics in order how to work Junkrat against what's good right now, but also kind of look to the future and why he's going to be even good moving into the Brigida meta. I could look to some Overwatch League footage for this video, but because I've played him so much, I'm not going to, but I also want to emphasize a bit more why he's so important in matchmaking, because although he does see quite a lot of usage in the Overwatch League, you have to consider him a counter meta pick, because the mainstay meta picks in the DPS slot are going to be Tracer, Genji, maybe Widow, Pharah, depending on what map we're talking about. And really, with how unreliable Junkrat is sometimes, most teams don't want to pick him. But if you're looking to counter the meta, which is one of my favorite ways to play, Junkrat is the type of hero that can bring all of the tools necessary to deal with everything that's good. Dive, deathball, or bunker, Junkrat does it all if you know how to deal with the different scenarios that you come up against. And there's an extra component to this as well, beyond meta strategy, that Junkrat is the type of character that simply makes space for his teammates in matchmaking, which is where I want to start developing. In matchmaking, I think a lot of people view the game as tanks, healers, and damage, rather than characters that need resources or provide space, which is a lot of times is what you have to think about. It's not really good enough to go Zen Ana if you don't have the components to keep them alive. A lot of times I see in matchmaking players go those two healers in particular who are really slow and ultimately exploitable by mobility. And if you don't have a character like Junkrat that can really punish aggression as well as get good burst damage and CC, they can kind of get walked over, left expecting their team to be able to protect them. And in reality, I would say they probably should swap off those heroes. Probably the number one support mistake in matchmaking. Don't play a support hero that you can't keep yourself alive on. The game is, of course, about team play, but your contribution matters as well. If you're the type of hero that requires the whole team to play around you, you're not going to have success in matchmaking, which is why Junkrat starts to look so insane, because he can get his own kills and win his own duels once you get proficient with his abilities, but also the aerial denial and the threat of the insta-kill mine makes space for other players to have security in their picks when they're kind of losing their battle. The CC and range damage really helps your front line, and the insta-kill mine threat can secure your backline. So basically what you're saying is, Frito, Junkrat's like the best DPS. Yes, I've been saying that for such a long time, that Junk is incredible, and it took forever, it seemed, for everybody to catch up with that, but we had been saying it for months, and he's still really good, even with the mine nerf. Now, I know many of you are probably thinking, okay, I know, Junkrat's easy, he spams my teammates down, and they feed into all of his damage. What do I do to counter him? Well, the truth is, Junk requires the enemy to take the proper range damage to beat him. He can't challenge a Widow at range, and although he's incredibly good against ground-based DPS, McCree, and Soldier, when they're going into a choke, he all of a sudden is really bad against them once they have high ground, because just like the Widow example, he can't really peek into their lines of sight. And of course, Pharmacy can put some hurt on him as well, but the problem is, and the reason why I consider Junkrat so high in the meta right now, is that he has the mobility to always avoid his bad engagements and find good ones, and it's even worse because in match matchmaking, the tank and support play is often so poor, they don't allow their range characters to put in the work to defeat the Junkrat, and as the Junkrat player, if you avoid your bad matchups and go and farm your good ones, you're providing so much value to the team fight that the enemy doesn't really find the answer. Here's a good example of this on Ruins. If you watch a lot of the Overwatch League, you know Widow runs this map. It's her best map in the entire league. However, from the first go of it, I know they're probably going to have a Widow, and once I know for sure they do, I try to play really defensive around these pillars, allow for the play to set up, don't peek my head out, get a bead on what's going on in the map. And the big mistake that the enemy tanks make is going onto the point where I can damage them. Instead of trying to capture the point when they have a Widow on their team, they should be looking to structure the engagement to get pickoffs. They need to aggress into the team fight and not play the objective. And because they do go to play the objective, we're going to easily control this engagement and burst them down. And I think a lot of the times you hear and see teammates get mad at their Widowmaker or Pharah or whomever, why aren't you killing anything? A lot of the times it's the tanks feeding into the Junkrat and not knowing what engagement to take that loses the fight before the Widow could even really have a chance. Now, maybe the enemy Widow is pretty bad in this instance, I don't know. But as you can tell, we're not really giving her any shots either. And the incredible Junkrat damage is just gonna eat up any point presence they try to put down. They really have to play for picks in this scenario. Besides, they got a pick comp anyway. They're running a Orisa Hog. They're not supposed to go to try to take damage at all. They have to go find kills, but this is exactly what I mean. The team play and knowing responsibilities and matchmaking is so bad that if you play a good Junkrat, you will eat teams alive because they just constantly allow you to spam into them, build up rip tires, and carry the game by outputting more damage than their team does. I want to move into some specifics on how to actualize this play for yourself, but my last point on the meta arguments of it is that it really comes down to Junkrat's mind being such an outrageously good multi-use tool, allowing him to punish aggression, run from aggression, or to get into aggressive positioning himself. Another example, look at this diva who fails to eat my mine, just allows me to completely avoid all of her aggression, and now she's wide out of position and didn't really get anything out of that move. And then the Reaper tries to Death Blossom us, and the CC on him removes all of the value of that ultimate as well. Probably wasn't a good ultimate either way, but you see what I mean? The mine comes back so often and is so reliable at doing so many different things, whether moving Junkrat where he needs to be, that he's always holding the position he wants, or CCing the enemies into spots they don't want to be. And moving forward, thinking into how strong I think Brigitte Rhine's going to be, it's going to be hard to utilize any spread damage against armor, and it's going to be far more effective to poke it down at range with Junkrat, meaning that I think his stock is even going to go up, making it so that there isn't really a comp he's bad against, and the only heroes where he has poor matchups are heroes that oftentimes he can avoid anyway. Spoken mostly about the meta implications of the strength of Junkrat, and not many tips. I assume a lot of players at least think they're good at Junkrat because he is an easier DPS. He gets a lot of free value just by playing him intelligently, but I really think the extent of what you can get out of Junkrat is fully realized once you start to get proficient at hitting his primary fire with a direct hit, which can be more difficult than I think people assume it is. I think a lot of times people think of Junkrat as simply the character that puts random damage towards them, whereas really to make good use of him, you have to be able to hit a Tracer, lead it into Genji, shoot just about your entire clip without missing on a tank. It's not the hardest shots to hit in the world, but it does take some mastery over the arc of the projectile, and the more proficient you can get at shelling enemies from far range, the better you're going to be. Obviously, he's a bit easier to use the closer up you are, but I think really laning at range can be devastating against enemies because at most ranks it feels like people don't really respect that a Junkrat nade could be aimed directly at them. They think it's just like they're just going to avoid it at random, but if you can get fairly decent at aiming it from medium to longer ranges, you're going to get a lot of free kills because enemies simply don't respect it. Movement in the game overall is probably one of the least respected skill sets of Overwatch. I mean, it's like half of what FPS even is, especially when we look back to the arena shooter roots of the game. Dodging projectiles is a massive component and something that most players in Overwatch don't really seem to know how to do. We'll wrap this up with one final example on a Diamond game. Play Junkrat at all sorts of ranks from Diamond all the way up to really high Masters, nearly GM, and definitely on the lower SR accounts. It seems like the projectile avoidance was quite non-existent a lot of the times. And I think when you're playing against Junkrat, you want to look out to make sure that you realize you can face him quite effectively. Like, right out in the open, as long as you see where he's shooting, you can focus more on his projectiles rather than him, whereas against a hit scan DPS, you kind of want to do the opposite. Like, you want to avoid their lines of sight most of the time. But against Junkrat, it's more about dodging his ranged projectile. But the issue that goes up above that is that oftentimes in many of these clips, I realized I was playing with a Widowmaker teammate. And as we've seen in the Overwatch League, Junkrat Widow is the 1-2 punch to really be the scariest combo. And I think overall, to be honest, those two together are the most devastating DPS lineup. You might think it's Tracer Genji, and I think they're the most applicable DPS lineup, the ones that work in the most scenarios, but the most powerful one is Junkrat plus Widow, because against the Junkrat, you want to be able to see him where he's shooting from and dodge his projectiles out in the open, but that opens you up for Widow to get shots on you reliably, and then if you try to aggress into the Widowmaker, she runs away with grappling hook, and Junkrat hits you with all of his close range burst, making for that controlling playstyle to be really strong, and especially when we're talking about armor being key with Brigitte in the future, Junkrat Widow is probably going to take another step up, even more strong than they are already. So keep holding that left click down and concussion mining your way to victory. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, please leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day. So you're going to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.